Welcome to another Chalk or Not segment. This week we're talking about UFC Vegas 103, where we have 9 of our 12 fights with chalky spots. So we'll see if we can decipher them, hopefully help you guys avoid some landmines in some of these parlays, and hopefully cash some tickets with parlays. Or if you're looking to take some chalk straight up, this is the segment for you. And again, this is my personal opinion on anything that's minus 185 or wider, and whether I believe it deserves your interest, your money, or your investment at all or not. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying the segment since I dropped it over the last couple of weeks. So without further ado, let's get right into this first matchup up. We're going to be talking about Danny Silva, who comes in at minus 185 as he goes up against Lucas Almeida in what is surely to be a striker's delight. We got two guys that usually take different approaches with their striking. Silva a little bit more boxing centric, whereas Lucas Almeida a little bit more Muay Thai centric. And I think for a long time Almeida has been overlooked and underrated by a lot of fighters. And I fully expect this fight to be much closer, than minus 185. 65% indicates for Danny Silva. The elbows of Almeida could allow him to help open up some cuts on Danny Silva that can make this look optically closer than it actually is. Danny Silva, not a guy that runs away with a lot of his fights, and is still somebody that's trying to accrue more experience at this level. And I think Almeida will be a very tough test for him here. So I do not think Danny Silva is chalk worthy in this fight. He may go on to win this fight, but I don't think he's going to look that price tag. My official prediction was actually Lucas Almeida, so that is another reason why I don't believe he is chalk worthy here, but just throwing it out there. All right, next up, JJ Aldrich coming in at minus 210, going up against Andrea Lee. This is a fight that's taken some action over the last 24 to 36 hours. Last time I saw JJ Aldrich, she was around minus 180, and it seems like the public is starting to pile on her now at minus 210. Some obvious action coming in on her there. Now, a lot of women's MMA fights a little bit closer than the odds normally indicate, but in this matchup specifically, I think there is a very good case for Aldrich to go out there and do what she does best, and that's put on a solid pressure style with her boxing. Not like a Merab Dvalishvili type of pressure, but, staying firm with her stance, moving forward, throwing her combinations, not really getting too deterred by the strikes that are coming back her way. And even with the kickboxing and Muay Thai approach of Lee, I don't think it's going to cause a lot of issues for Aldrich here. If Lee looks to get this fight to the ground, I think she will struggle in terms of keeping it there or even getting it there in the first place, which will allow Aldrich to do what she does best, and that's put her combinations together, rack up the points here, and end up winning this fight on the scorecards. Minus 210 is kind of on the tail end of where I would consider JJ Aldrich to be chalkworthy, so I will categorize her at chalkworthy in this spot. But if it gets wider than minus 250, then I would start to question it. But at minus 210, I think that's like the most I would recommend in terms of parlaying her or even playing her straight up if you're looking to do so. Next up, John Castaneda coming in at minus 275, going up against the brick shithouse, Douglas Silva, D'Andrade, close to his 40th birthday, if I'm not mistaken. Castaneda, looking to go out there and spring that defeat here against D'Andrade before he turns 40. Castaneda, solid all-around fighter, a good lateral movement with his striking, good wrestling if he needs it. But D'Andrade is a guy that can make fights a lot closer than they should be, simply with the power in which he lands with, the explosivity, some of the damage he might be able to land on some of his opponents. And I think his last win over Cody Stamann is a perfect example of that. I would categorize Castaneda in that Cody Stamann kind of level and experience, which is why it's kind of hard for me to really get behind Castaneda as a big favorite here. Now, I believe he was around minus 220 when I researched this matchup, and it's getting even wider now at minus 275. I think this is a little bit overboard. We can't completely overlook Andrade and the power that he possesses, the leg kicks that he can land that could possibly debilitate Castaneda. I'm picking Castaneda to win this matchup, but it's going to be hard for him to do it given the optics that we normally see from the Brazilian side of things here. So I'm going to go Castaneda as not chalk worthy in this fight. I think he wins, but it's going to be tougher than minus 275, nearly 75% indicated here, between 70 and 75%. I don't think it looks that easy. All right, next up, Chepe Mariscal going up against Ricardo Ramos. We got minus 500 now on Mariscal, who was closer to minus 350 when I researched this matchup. So it seems like a lot of guys are on that Mariscal side of things, but it makes sense. This is a fighter in Mariscal who has a ton of experience from the regional scene. It's paying off for him now in the UFC as he's 4-0 or 5-0 with the promotion. Pulled off some solid wins, really stifling guys with his smothering wrestling, with his pace, with his pressure, his ability to continuously move forward, utilize that cardio and that smothering pace. And I think that's going to cause Ramos a ton of issues here. Ramos might be the technically better striker, but I don't think he'll be able to have the ability to dictate the pace of this matchup, which is going to cause him a lot of troubles here. Now, in the past, I would have jumped at the opportunity of taking Ramos at plus 350, plus 400, but he is not the fighter that we expected him to be back in the day. So at minus 500, again, kind of the tail end of where I would put Mariscal, but I think he ends up winning this matchup, and I think he makes it look quite easy as well. So at minus 500, I would consider Mariscal to be chalk-worthy in this spot. Next up, Danny Barlow going up against Sam Patterson. You got minus 285 on the Barlow side of things. Reverse action on him this week as people are buying into Sam Patterson here. We got Barlow all the way up at minus 350, now down to minus 285, and I think we're going to see it settle around this mark. Now, Barlow, solid striker, good southpaw, nasty left straight down the pipe. He's put down plenty of opponents, has some solid wrestling if he needs to utilize that too. Patterson, solid striker, normally at a height and reach advantage over his opponents. He won't have a lot of that here against Barlow, but Patterson really buying into the BJJ black belt he obtained within a year or so ago, and really taking opponents to the ground, choking them out ASAP, and trying to get out of there sooner than later. With Barlow here, I think he's going to struggle to get this fight to the ground, and I actually think Barlow will dictate the pace of this. I think we'll see Patterson try to get off with some of his strikes, and I think he's going to pay for it dearly as Barlow ends up landing the cleaner and tighter shots here, which could potentially lead to a knockout victory for him. I was kind of surprised to see a little bit of the reverse action, but now that I'm thinking a little bit more about it, you see how good Patterson looks as of late. Maybe he's able to go out there and make it closer than the odds suggest, but I'd kind of be surprised if we see Barlow drop below that minus 285 range. I believe Barlow is chalk-worthy in this spot. I get it. Patterson is streaking, looks like he has some solid potential, but Barlow's knockout power and his ability to land that left down the pipe is going to cause Patterson a lot of issues, which will result in Patterson getting knocked out once again. So give me Barlow to win this by knockout, and I think he is chalk-worthy at minus 285. Next up, William Gomez coming in at minus 185, going up against Haider Emil. Gomez also eating some reverse action here as well as people piling on to the Emil side of things. We saw Gomez closer to minus 200, even went up to about minus 220 for a second, but now finds himself at minus 185. People believing in the Haider Emil side, and I am one of those guys. I've long believed guys that can utilize a high pace, high pressure, and a high grappling approach are going to be able to wear down Gomez and eventually start running away late in their matchups. But Francis Marshall started his engines a little bit too late. Joanderson Brito, very surprised that he got stifled as long as he did in that first round, but I still believe there is a good enough case that he should have won that first round, and that ultimately would have given him the fight all in all. But Emil is a guy that does not accept his back foot at all. This is a guy that constantly moves forward, puts a high pace and high pressure on his opponents, and looks to break them down, and has a great cardio game to go with it. His durability is held up for the most part, which is why he has a 10-0 record. And as long as he doesn't, leave his head on the center line for too long for Gomez to snipe. I think Emil will keep that high pressure and pace on Gomez, and I think he'll eventually break him down and end up finishing him either in the third round or by a decision. With that said, William Gomez, not chalk worthy in my opinion, and I don't even think he'll be chalk by the time the fight goes down, as I think we'll see continued action on Emil over the next few days here. So if you're looking to get on Emil, I would say sooner than later, because I'd be surprised if this line gets any better at this point. All right, next up, the UFC debut of Mario Pinto coming in at -450, going up against Austin Lane. Now, Pinto earned his contract through the Contender Series this past season, put on a solid performance, knocking out his opponent Lucas Camacho in the first round. But I believe this is one of the higher level prospects that we've gotten in the heavyweight division in a while. Solid takedown defense, very smooth striking, doesn't chase the knockout, but rather just waits for it to come to him. And I believe his technical striking abilities allow him to exploit those weaknesses in his opponents. I think we'll see him stop the takedowns and clinch that Lane will inevitably be looking to initiate. And then from there, once Lane starts throwing a little bit to try to get the respect, he's going to get bonked and he's going to get put out clean here. I think Pinto is far superior to Lane, and I think his technical striking abilities will outweigh the athletic advantages that Lane normally has over some of his opponents, and I think we'll see Pinto eventually find that knockout blow, which is why at -450, I think he is chalk-worthy in this spot. All right, next up, Esteban Ribovics coming in at -300, going up against Nasrat Haqparast. Now, Ribovics is a guy that has taken some actions recently as well. He was about -250, now finds himself at -300, as a lot of people are buying into his power striking approach. Last time around, he picked up a big upset victory over prospect Daniel Zellhuber in a fight of the year candidate in a back and forth matchup. But I think a lot of people are taking that into this matchup a little bit too heavily and kind of nullifying and negating and forgetting about all that Haqparast has done over his UFC career thus far. Haqparast is a very solid combination striker who throws with some decent power, although only has 2 knockout victories in his 9 UFC wins, but he still lands with some authority that demands respect from his opponents. I think he'll be able to counter Ribovics effectively here, and as long as his durability, which holds up for the most part, shows up once again here against Ribovics, he should be able to make this much closer than 75% indicated for Ribovics. I think Haqparast definitely wins this fight more than 25% of the time. He can make it very competitive. He has the experience and strength of schedule to back it up. It's all about if his durability shows up here, which I think it will be able to. So I'm going to go Haqparast on this side, which ultimately leans me with Esteban Ribovics not being chalk-worthy here. And that brings us to the main event now, with Manel Kape coming in at -205, going up against Asu Almabayev. Now, Kape has been getting faded, it seems like, over the last 36 hours, as Kape went from about -230 down to this -205 line. I think, I can understand the people's love and willingness to bet a guy like Almabayev at underdog odds. It makes complete sense. I believe he's on a 10-fight winning streak. Very good wrestling, obviously, passable striking, momentum, obviously, very much on his side. But we saw in his last fight against Matthias Nicolau that he won't be able to land those, those classic Almabayev takedowns on guys that are, higher up in the rankings. And that's what he's going to have to face here in Kape. I think Kape has good enough takedown defense that he can force Almabayev to strike with him. And Almabayev, decent striking, obviously dropped Nicolau in the final round of their fight and was able to enjoy about 3.5 to 4 minutes of control time to win that third round. But I think he's going to struggle to do that here with Kape. Kape does a very good job in terms of blitzing the pocket with a big power. He is, one of the best in terms of landing power at flyweight. I believe 12 of his 20 victories coming by knockout just goes to show what kind of power he brings. He also has 5 submission victories on his record that he can showcase some club and sub spots. But I think the big part here is going to be the big striking advantage. And I think Almabayev might have that confidence to try to contest with him there, but I don't think it's going to come to fruition for him here. So I think Kape actually successfully keeps this fight upright and then manages to utilize his striking approach to really put it on Almabayev here and showcase to Almabayev, hey, you're on a great streak. I believe you're 4-0 in the UFC thus far, but this is where you're going to have to start turning things up a little bit more. And I think he's going to struggle to do that here against Kape. So I'm going to go with Kape. I think he is chalk-worthy at -205, whether you want to play him straight up or throw him into a parlay. I think the Angolan/Portuguese fighter here ends up getting his hand raised by decision. And I think he does it at that -205 rate. There you guys go. Chalk or not for UFC Vegas 103. I'll be back tomorrow for the quick picks breakdown of this UFC Vegas 103 card. See you guys then. Peace.